Welcome to the channel. Hit subscribe and dive into stories that'll stay with you long after the video ends. Let's begin. Rain lashed against the windshield, blurring the two-lane road into streaks of gray and gold from the streetlights. Daniel Keane tightened his grip on the steering wheel, his wipers struggling to keep up. It was one of those late autumn evenings that felt older than it should when daylight fades too. Early and everything smells like damp leaves and oil. He was just 20 minutes from home after another long shift at the auto shop, the kind of day that left his hands raw and his back stiff. All he wanted was dinner, a hot shower, and silence. But then, something caught his eye, a small figure half hidden by the downpour, standing on the shoulder near the curve where the road dipped toward the old bridge. At first, Daniel thought it was a trick of the light, but then lightning flashed, white and quick, and he saw her, a little girl. She couldn't have been more than 6 or 7. No coat, just a thin pink sweater clinging to her arms. She stood still, soaked, staring toward the woods on the other side of the guardrail. Daniel slowed, his heart beating hard. He pulled over, hazard lights blinking against the rain. He opened his door. "Hey, you okay?" he called, raising his voice over the storm. The girl turned her head. Her hair was plastered to her face and her lips were pale. "Where are your parents?" She didn't answer, just stared. Then she took a small step back toward the trees. "Whoa, hey, wait. Don't go in there." Daniel jogged toward her, slipping a little in the mud. She froze at the edge of the woods like a deer caught between fear and instinct. He crouched, lowering his voice. "It's all right. I'm not gonna hurt you." "You're cold, huh?" After a long pause, she nodded, barely. "Okay," he said softly. "Let's get you warm. My truck's right there, see? You can sit inside just for a minute." She looked toward the headlights, then back at him. Another flash of lightning illuminated her face, and something in her eyes made his stomach twist. They were wide, searching, too knowing for someone so small. Finally, she whispered, "My name's Lily." "Hi, Lily. I'm Daniel. Can you help me find my daddy?" The question hit him harder than he expected. "We'll find him," he said, though he wasn't sure who he was. He led her to the truck, wrapped his flannel jacket around her shoulders, and turned up the heat. She shivered quietly, staring at the rain sliding down the glass. "Where did you come from?" he asked. She hesitated. "I was walking. I got lost." "From where?" Her eyes flicked to him, then away. "The house with the red porch," Daniel frowned. There weren't many houses that fit that description out here, maybe 2 in the next couple miles. He started the engine. "We'll drive slow, see if you recognize it, all right?" She nodded, her fingers clutching the jacket tighter. As he pulled back onto the road, the storm began to ease, the thunder rolling into the distance. But in the glow of the dashboard lights, Daniel noticed something that made his chest go cold. On the girl's wrist, faint but visible under the wet fabric, was a hospital bracelet, and the name printed on it was one he thought he'd never see again. Daniel's hands went cold on the steering wheel. The bracelet was half faded, the ink smudged by rain, but the name was unmistakable. Lily Harper. He swallowed hard. That last name, it shouldn't have meant anything. But it did, because Harper wasn't common around here, and it belonged to someone Daniel had spent years trying to forget. He stole a glance at the girl sitting beside him, her small face reflected in the window. She was quiet now, her eyes following the blurred shapes of trees sliding by. "Lily," he said carefully, "what's your daddy's name?" She hesitated, her voice barely above a whisper. "Evan." The sound of it pulled something sharp and buried out of Daniel's chest. Evan Harper. He hadn't said that name in almost 8 years. He'd known Evan once, better than he wanted to. They'd grown up together, worked side by side until everything fell apart. Until the accident. The girl didn't notice his silence. She was tracing her fingertip along the fogged glass, drawing a crooked heart. Daniel forced his mind to focus. "Do you know where your house is, Lily? Maybe what the road's called?" She shook her head. "But it's by the water. Daddy said you can see the moon on it. By the water. That could mean the river, maybe the lake. A dozen possibilities." He kept the truck rolling, watching for a red porch through the darkness. The rain had slowed to a drizzle, and mist was rising off the pavement like breath. After a few minutes, Lily spoke again. "You smell like oil," she said, wrinkling her nose. Daniel laughed softly, the sound rough. Yeah, I work at a garage. Guess it doesn't wash off easy. She tilted her head. My daddy used to fix cars too. That stopped him, used to. He glanced at her again. Used to? She didn't answer right away. Her small fingers fidgeted with the bracelet. He doesn't come home anymore, she said finally. Mommy says he's working somewhere far. A quiet settled in the truck, heavy and fragile. Daniel's headlights cut through the mist, catching the reflection of a mailbox ahead. Red paint chipped at the corners. He slowed down. There, a porch. Wide, with peeling red rails. Is that it? He asked. Lily leaned forward, pressing her face to the window. For a heartbeat, her eyes lit up. Then her smile faded. It was, she whispered. But it's not anymore. The house looked abandoned. Windows boarded, weeds choking the path. Daniel parked by the gate and turned off the engine. The ticking of the cooling motor filled the silence. What do you mean it's not anymore? Lily's voice dropped to a whisper. They don't live there now, he frowned. Then where's your mom? She looked out the window again, her expression unreadable. She said someone would come for me. The words sent a chill through him. Someone? She nodded slowly. A man in a blue truck. Daniel froze because he remembered that truck. Pale blue, rust creeping along the fender. Evan's old Chevy. The same one Daniel had last seen the night of the accident, half crushed against a guardrail. But that truck was gone. Scrapped years ago, he turned back toward the girl. Lily, when did your daddy tell you that? She smiled faintly, eyes distant. Last night, Daniel's breath caught. His pulse thudded in his ears. He stared at her reflection in the glass. Small, quiet, rain-speckled. And for the first time since he'd found her, he wondered if he'd made a mistake bringing her with him. The wind had shifted. Outside, the trees hissed softly against one another, branches bending like dark fingers. Daniel sat still, the engine ticking faintly in the cooling night. He could hear his own heartbeat, steady and uneasy. Lily, he said quietly, when you talked to your dad last night. Where were you? In my room, she said, as if it were the most ordinary thing in the world. He sat on the bed. He told me to wait by the bridge. Daniel's breath came shallow. The bridge where I found you? She nodded. He said someone would come help me. He ran a hand over his face. None of this made sense. Evan Harper had died 8 years ago, on that same stretch of road. Daniel had been there when it happened. He'd watched the flames swallow that blue truck whole, and now this girl, with his eyes and his name, was sitting in his passenger seat. Daniel stepped out of the truck for air. The night was thick and quiet, the smell of wet earth rising from the ditch. The house loomed behind him, familiar in a way that made his stomach turn. He'd been here once, long ago, before everything went wrong. He could almost hear the echo of laughter on the porch, see Evan grinning with a beer in hand. That was before the argument, before the debt, before the crash that had left Daniel with a scar across his ribs and a lifetime of guilt. He took a slow breath and looked back at the little girl inside the truck. Her face was calm, unreadable, the faint glow of the dashboard lights flickering across her pale skin. He got back in. All right, he said gently. We'll figure this out. Maybe your mom's nearby, Lily looked up. You knew my daddy, didn't you? The question hung in the air like smoke. Daniel hesitated, then nodded. Yeah, a long time ago. She smiled, small and sad. He said you would come. The words stopped him cold. What? He said, Daniel will find you. Daniel felt something drop in his stomach. He didn't know how to answer that. Didn't even know how to believe it. Before he could speak again, headlights swept across the road behind them. A truck turned the corner slowly, tires crunching on the wet gravel. Daniel leaned forward, squinting. It was blue, old, dented. The kind of color you only saw on paint from another decade. His pulse quickened. He reached for the door handle instinctively, shielding Lily with his arm. The truck rolled to a stop a few yards back, its engine rumbling low. The driver's window stayed dark. Lily, he murmured. Lock your door. She didn't move. Her gaze was fixed on the truck, wide and expectant. Daniel pressed the lock himself, then stared at the shadowed cab. Rain began again, softly this time, tapping the roof in a slow rhythm. The truck's headlights flickered once. Then the driver's door opened with a heavy groan. A man stepped out, coat collar turned up, face hidden in the dark. Daniel felt his throat tighten. The man's walk, steady, deliberate, felt eerily familiar. Lily's voice came small and trembling but certain. "That's him." Daniel turned to her. "Your dad?" She nodded, tears glinting at the corners of her eyes. And as the man stepped into the edge of the headlights, Daniel saw what made his breath stop, because the face that looked back at him was one he'd buried in his memory, burned into every nightmare since that night on the bridge. It was Evan Harper, or someone who looked exactly like him. For a moment, Daniel couldn't move. The air inside the truck went heavy, thick enough to choke on. Evan Harper was standing 10 feet away, soaked from the rain, eyes dark and unreadable under the dripping brim of his cap. Daniel's breath came shallow. Every part of him screamed impossible. He'd watched Evan's truck burn. He'd seen the body pulled from the wreck. He'd stood beside the ashes at the funeral. Yet here he was, alive, older, with the same crooked jaw and that familiar calm that always came before a storm. "Evan," Daniel said finally, voice rough. The man tilted his head, studying him. Then he smiled, slow and tired. "Didn't think you'd stop." Daniel's hand tightened on the steering wheel. "I saw a kid in the rain. I wasn't about to drive past that." Evan's eyes flicked toward the passenger seat. "You found her." Lily sat perfectly still, her small hand pressed against the window. "Daddy?" The word cracked through the silence like a shot. Evan stepped closer, his face softening. "Hey, sweetheart." Daniel opened his door, stepping out between them. "You want to tell me what's going on?" Evan looked at him, rain running down the lines of his face. "You already know." "No, I don't. You're supposed to be—" He couldn't finish. Evan gave a humorless chuckle. "Yeah, that's what they all think." Daniel shook his head. "This isn't funny, man. You disappeared 8 years ago." "What the hell is happening?" Evan's eyes darkened. It wasn't an accident, Daniel. Something twisted deep in Daniel's chest. "What do you mean?" Evan took another step forward, lowering his voice. "You remember that night? The call, the debt. You think I went off that road by mistake?" Daniel stared at him, raindrops streaming down his face. "You're saying someone made it happen?" Evan nodded once. "Someone you and I both crossed." Daniel's thoughts spun. "You mean—" Evan cut him off with a glance toward Lily. "Not here." The little girl was watching them, confusion clouding her face. "Daddy, why are you mad?" Evan knelt beside the door. "I'm not mad, honey." "You did good. You waited like I told you." She smiled faintly. "He helped me." Evan looked up at Daniel again. "You shouldn't have come back here." Daniel took a step closer, lowering his voice. "She was alone, Evan, freezing. You expect me to leave her on the side of the road?" For a moment, the only sound was the soft hiss of rain against metal. Then Evan's expression shifted, something between gratitude and guilt. "I knew you wouldn't," lightning flashed, briefly illuminating the side of Evan's neck, where a faint scar ran from ear to collarbone. The same spot Daniel remembered being burned. Daniel's pulse hammered. "Where have you been?" Evan looked past him toward the empty road. Hiding, watching, trying to keep her safe. Safe from who? Before Evan could answer, the night erupted with a blinding set of headlights from the opposite direction. A second vehicle was coming fast. Too fast, Evan's face went white. "Get her down," he shouted. Daniel ducked instinctively as the oncoming truck veered off the road, tires screaming. It smashed into the fence where Evan had been standing just seconds before. The impact threw wood and metal into the air, the noise splitting the night open. Daniel stumbled out, coughing through the smoke and rain. But when he looked toward the spot where Evan had been, there was nothing. No body. No footprints. Only the faint shimmer of the hospital bracelet lying in the mud. The name washed clean by the rain. Smoke drifted low over the field, mixing with the rain, until it felt like the night itself was dissolving. Daniel stood frozen, his breath ragged, heart pounding. The wrecked truck hissed where steam met wet grass, its engine dying in slow, uneven clicks. He staggered forward. "Evan!" His voice broke in the wind. No answer. The driver's door of the crashed truck hung open, rocking with the gusts. Inside, the seat was empty, no one. Just shattered glass and the smell of gasoline. Behind him, Lily's small voice trembled. "Where's my daddy?" Daniel turned back toward the pickup. She was standing outside now, barefoot in the mud, clutching his flannel around her. The rain had stopped, leaving only a soft drizzle that glistened on her hair. He wanted to tell her the truth, but what truth was there? He'd seen Evan, he'd heard him. He'd watched him disappear. "Lily," he said quietly, kneeling down. "Listen to me, okay? We're gonna get you somewhere safe. I promise." She shook her head. "He said you'd take care of me." Daniel froze.
He said that?
She nodded, eyes wide. "He said you owed him, that you'd make it right this time." The words hit him like a blow. His mind reeled back to that night. The roar of the engine, the flash of headlights, the sickening spin. Evan's voice shouting through static, "You said you'd cover me, Danny." "Just once, cover me." Daniel had hesitated. And by the time he reached the curve, the truck was already tumbling. He swallowed hard. "Lily." "Your dad, he wasn't supposed to." But before he could finish, the sound of sirens cut through the rain. Red and blue lights flickered against the wet trees. A sheriff's cruiser pulled up, tires grinding against gravel. The door swung open and a tall, broad man stepped out. Sheriff Harlan, face drawn, eyes sharp. "Keane," he called. "You okay?" Daniel stood slowly, nodding. I think so." Harlan's gaze moved past him to the girl. "Who's the kid?" Daniel looked at her, then back at the sheriff. "Name's Lily Harper." Said she was lost. Harlan's face changed, something tightening in his jaw. "Harper?" "Yeah," Daniel said, voice low. "You know her?" The sheriff hesitated, then stepped closer. "Daniel, Lily Harper died 5 years ago." The words didn't register at first. "What?" "She was in foster care after her father's accident. House fire took her and her mother both. We found the bracelet near the property." "You sure that's her name?" Daniel turned slowly toward the girl. She was standing by the fence, rain dripping from her fingertips, eyes calm, almost serene. The sheriff's radio crackled. Static, then a faint voice. "Unit 4. We've got reports of a collision near Old Harper's Crossing. Blue truck. No sign of driver." Daniel felt the world tilt beneath him. He took a step back, his throat dry. Lily smiled faintly. "It's okay," she whispered. "He's not gone. He just wanted you to see." "To see what?" Daniel asked, his voice trembling. "That you did the right thing this time." A cold wind swept through the clearing, bending the grass flat. When Daniel blinked, she was gone. No footsteps, no sound. Only his jacket lying in the mud where she'd stood. The sheriff's voice seemed far away. "Daniel, you with me?" He stared at the empty space, the faint shimmer of the bracelet caught in the cruiser's lights. For the first time in years, the weight in his chest loosened, not gone, but changed. He looked toward the bridge in the distance, where the fog had lifted just enough to reveal a sliver of silver water beneath. Daniel exhaled, the breath long and shaking. "Yeah," he said softly, "I'm with you." And as he turned toward the sirens and the morning light breaking faintly through the clouds, he could have sworn, just for a second, he heard a child's laughter drift through the rain. Thanks for watching. Subscribe and visit the channel for more real-life heartfelt stories.